as the true manifestation of Islam. No one, Muslim or non-Muslim, can deny that there have been a lot of terrorist acts perpetrated by Muslims. But then, a lot of terrorism has also been perpetrated by non-Muslims. The difference is that if a Muslim does it, the deed is immediately attributed to his faith. But when a non-Muslim commits the most heinous of terroristic crimes, his deed is not linked to his religion. The immediate reaction to the bombing of a government building in Oklahoma was that it was another Muslim terrorist act. When it was discovered that it was not a Muslim who did it, the fact that the bomber was a Christian was ignored. It was not described as Christian terrorism. Dear brothers in Islam, the bitter fighting in Northern Ireland involves religious differences between two Christian groups, but at no time have the bombings, killings, maiming by the IRA and their Protestant rivals been termed Christian terrorism or Catholic or Protestant terrorism. But the terrorism by people of the Christian faith in Northern Ireland pales into insignificance when compared to the brutality of the Christian Serbs in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Tens of thousands of Muslims in Bosnia-Herzegovina have been raped, starved, tortured, and massacred by the Serbs. Mass graves are found everywhere. The Bosnian Serbs openly declared that they were carrying out ethnic cleansing in order to prevent the setting up of a Muslim nation in Europe. Because of certain implications, Europe refuses to describe ethnic cleansing as genocide, which is what it really is. Yet, at no time have the massacres and terrorism by the Christian Serbs been described as Christian terrorism. Instead, European forces willingly handed over safe havens for the Muslims to the Serbs, who subsequently massacred thousands of young Muslim men. Just supposing, it was the Muslim Bosnian Slavs who had the weapons and the numbers, and they were supported by the Muslim countries, and they had committed the atrocities, the world would be screaming Muslim terrorism from the mountaintops, and NATO would have moved in and ended the independence of Bosnia-Herzegovina in no time. But such is the perception of Muslims by the West that is not even noted that the victims of Muslim fanatics and the misnamed fundamentalists are insignificant compared to the numbers of Muslims and non-Muslims who have been massacred by terrorists of the Christian faith. The misunderstanding of Islam and Muslims is such that the West naturally assumes that terrorism is a Muslim creed and is confined to Muslims. Evidence to the contrary are just ignored. There have been a few Western writers who have tried to be factual and fair, but these writers are either ignored or condemned. Attempts by Muslims to point out that the Muslims who are terrorists are a minority and that Muslims desire peace as much as anyone else have also been brushed aside. My dear brothers in Islam, Islam is the religion of people who once dominated the world. Dominated it not only in terms of territorial size and political strength, but in terms of the sciences, the arts, technology, skills in exploration, navigation, and in trade and industry. For almost 800 years, the Muslim Arabs ruled the largest empire known up till the 15th century, and then the Muslim Turks and Mongols presided over an even bigger empire. Empires, of course, rise and fall, and the Muslim empires did not escape this cycle. But throughout their greatest opponents were the Europeans, having embraced Christianity, another Asian religion. The Europeans were quite fanatical in their opposition to Islam. From the very beginning, there was a deliberate campaign to distort Islamic teachings, to prevent the Europeans from understanding it, and so risk their conversion. It is not surprising that the fall of the Turkish Empire was largely due to the machinations of European powers playing an Arab nationalist sentiments and the promise of independence from Turkish rule. The European powers obtained Arab cooperation to break up the Turkish Empire, but almost immediately the Arabs found that they had exchanged domination by fellow Muslims for European domination. All the Arab territories were occupied and exploited by the Europeans. The people of European origin of today may not be so fanatically Christian, but the attitude towards Muslims and Islam remains. And this is manifested in very painful ways for the Muslims. Whole nations are isolated, blockaded, and punished for the faults of a few. Muslims were allowed to be slaughtered in full view of their so-called European protectors. Is it any wonder that the Muslims are bitter and seek to avenge the wrongs visited upon them? Is it any wonder that they resort to violence, but still only a few do so? The Europeans should be able to understand this, for this is also the European reaction to their real or imagined repression by their own people or others, but no attempt is made to understand or appreciate the frustrations of the Muslims. Through the fall of the Muslims and the weakening in their practice and interpretation of Islam can largely be blamed on them. But the anti-Muslim propaganda and deliberate misunderstanding of the religion by the Europeans have merely aggravated the frustrations of the Muslims. Ikhwatil kiram, Islam is indeed a misunderstood religion. Such is the misunderstanding and the prejudice against it that Muslim and non-Muslim alike often regard it as an impediment, as a barrier to good, peaceful relations between Muslims and non-Muslims, and even between Muslims and Muslims. Both regard this religion that brought greatness to the Arabs and built a very progressive empire as being responsible for everything bad that happened between Muslims and non-Muslims. Ignorant of the teachings of Islam and frustrated by the apparent failures of Islam and with their own countries, some Muslims tend to deride and even condemn their religion. Others, again, due to frustration with the Muslim communities in which they live and ignorant about the teachings of Islam and its history, suggest that the Quran itself is at fault and needs to be revised. When such frustrations are aired, the Western media, the principal guide to Western intellectual thinking, would make heroes or heroines of these religiously illiterate and untutored people. Some Western countries would confer upon them awards and make them out to be brave people fighting the injustices of Islam. The answer lies in correcting or the tendentious and incorrect interpretation of Islam by some of the ulama. These interpreters of Islam, no matter how learned they may be in the teachings of the religion, or how large may be their following, or how established are their teachings, are not prophets. There is only one prophet for the Muslims, and he is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the last of Allah's messenger, who brought and spread the faith of Islam among men. Muhammad and the Quran cannot be wrong, but the interpreters of Islam can be. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Wa inna hadhihi ummatukum ummatan wahida wa ana rabbukum fattaqun. And indeed, this, your religion, is one religion, and I'm your Lord, so fear me. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-azim. ونفعني وإياكم بما فيه من الآيات والذكر الحكيم وتقبل مني ومنكم تلاوته إنه هو السميع العليم. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم ولوالدي ولوالديكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات